and welcome to Scale Car Garage. Well, we're going to continue with the Lola T-70 project, or projects, I think. Anyway, that's what we're going to do. Our next step is really to try and determine chassis configuration, type of construction. So why don't we get to that straight away here on Scale Car Garage. So to recap, we have 4 different Lola T-70 bodies that we've taken a look at and tried to compare not only to each other but to the actual Lola T-70 as the dimensions were existed, I imagine, and reduced them down to 1/32 scale. Wow, yeah, I'm not going to recap what we did. But basically what we did was we looked at 4 Lola T-70 bodies. And each one is very deserving of becoming a slot car. Now, admittedly, one already is, and it's kind of and it's a pretty good slot car. We should think maybe about, I don't know, what we could do to this to just maybe make it a better slot car or improve its performance. Something to consider. However, for the other 3 bodies, the Monogram 1960s, the Palmer, and the Aurora from the 1960s, we'll have to construct some sort of chassis. So let's go over to the chassis workbench and think about our configurations. I want to take you through essentially what I do when I'm looking for to do a new build. What type of chassis? Which motor should we use? And all that interesting stuff. But I've done something that I've actually never really done before. And again, I think it will, well, hopefully you'll find it interesting. And I hope that it will help to move these projects forward. So why don't we move over to that workbench right now? Right, so here we are at the workbench I use for making chassis. We've got our 4 Lola T-70 bodies, and it's time to think about making a chassis. Well, my first thought was maybe there's a chassis that I can just use as a ready to run, and there was. It was the TSR F chassis, and it was a sidewinder, which would give us the ability to have a full and detailed interior like the Monogram, which is really what I'd love to do for all of these Lola T-70s. It performs very, very well. Great construction. I happen to have one, so I put one together. Let's take a look. Okay, so here is the TSR F chassis, and excuse me for putting my glasses on here. It's a sidewinder configuration, and it has a motor that's really, really quick, quite fast actually, and that's keeping in line with what a Can-Am car would be. Those motors were absolutely stellar. They were just literal ground shakers. So, okay, fits within the spirit of the car. The gears are absolutely lovely. It has this nylon middle and a floating stainless steel pan, if you will. It has a pin guide, but goes around the track quite well. Comes with grippy tires and wheels. Well, let's see if it'll fit any of these cars. Well, in doing some, and I've got this set to the shortest wheelbase. Sorry, I should mention that. So when looking at the Monogram 1960s car, it's really close. It's very, very close, but it's a wee bit wide on the tires. Maybe we could do, but it's actually pretty darn close. I have to do a lot of trimming. Whoops, wait a minute. I'm gonna eat my words here. if you look at the front and where the guide blade, oh dear. That is, that's just, the glass there, that's agonizingly close. Well, perhaps if it was a little bit of work, but you know, if you have to work it, maybe it'd be best to build one on its own. Okay, well, close for the monogram 1960s Lola T-70 and the TSR F chassis. Now, if we choose to use this on the 2000s Lola T-70 body, it actually is a really good fit, and I suspect that's one of the reasons the TSR F chassis was created, was especially for fly cars. You would put a fly body directly on one of these chassis and have just a stellar slot car. These chassis are amazing. Unfortunately, I don't know if, I don't think they're available anymore. And I'm sorry, but if you happen to have one, I'm sure you know of what I speak. If you want to have one, maybe you can still get one, perhaps through a company called Electric Dreams. I digress. But look at that. It actually, wow, this is something there. It would actually, it's really close. It has the same sort of issue as the 1960s monogram with where the guidepost is, but again, a little bit of trimming and perhaps, well, so it's a candidate for the 2000 Lola T-70. Palmer, yeah, even if, oh my goodness, not the wheelbase, not good. Oh my gosh, the width, absolutely, unfortunately, it not a candidate, I'm afraid. Aurora, let's take a look. Oh, the length is, the wheelbase, I should say, excuse me. Wow, that's really good. That looks quite promising. The width, unfortunately, ooh dear, you'd need some really narrow front tires and narrow rear tires for this to work. But, and of course the same sort of issue with the guide location. But you know, it could be made to work. All right, so that's the TSR F chassis, complete. So, what I did have in my parts bin, and is perhaps a component to build a chassis from, would be the center of the TSR F chassis, and this is made of nylon. The 3/32 axle goes through these two holes, and a motor snaps in, and actually you with the TSR F gears you get perfect mesh. Again, the challenge is that the motors that snap in to this holder are the TSR F motors, which are basically Fox or Mabuchi Cheetahs or Foxes, and again, they're quite robust. But, and I'll show you, they snap right in. They're literally, they are absolutely made for this motor, and you can see here. Let's listen for the snap. There we go. Right in. So that's perhaps the basis of making a chassis. With that in mind, I did something I've never really done before. I've always thought that when I make a chassis, it's got to be perfect from the beginning, and I get tweaked. I thought I would do something called, what that people call proof of concept. So, and also it was because I was really impatient, which happens. So, I took one of these and did a quick prototype. Let's call it a prototype. That's a great word, prototype. Okay, did a prototype chassis using the TSR F middle. There you go, see, there's the, I used some narrower tires, and I just wanted to see if this concept would work. I wanted the front wheels to float. You see that? I don't know if you can see that. They float. And I drilled a hole in a shortened See, I shortened the nylon center portion of the TSR F chassis. Now here's where I was precise. I drilled the hole as exactly in the middle as I could, put in the correct brass tubing, and then put a TSR F guide on it. And it actually goes around the track really well. And you can see I didn't shorten the axles, and it's very much a prototype. So the wheelbase may not be correct, which I don't think it is. It's close, but it's not bang on. But we have proof of concept. Oh, look at that. There's a real possibility. Here we go. There's the monogram 1960s. In fact, those tires are too narrow. This fits. We could have a full interior. Proof of concept 1. Viable option. Very viable option. Now, sometimes, you know, even a broken clock is right twice a day, right? Let's see if I'm a broken clock. Okay, I'm not even going to, oh, wait a minute. Definitely would work on the 2000s. 2 for 2, folks. Wow. Okay, here we go, 2 for 2. Here's the real test, the Palmer. Oh my goodness. You know what? Look at, it would work with the Palmer. Wow. We could have a Sidewinder with the Palmer and a full interior. Deep breath, deep cleansing breath. Wow. Okay, which means the Aurora. Let's take a look. Yeah, surprisingly, because of the way I'd have to extend the wheelbase, because remember this had a longer wheelbase than the others. But as far as width, and we've got a proof of concept that could work on all 4 bodies. Oh, I don't know how viable this design is, but you know, honestly, I literally put this together in about 20 minutes, half hour max. Seriously, that's why it's kind of bent. Okay, enough of me yakking. So we have concept 1, viable, very viable. Where are we going? Okay, sorry TSRF, but love you. Concept 1 is viable. All right, let's put TSRF here. Okay, and here is concept 2. Now, I thought maybe the motor would be a little harsh, so I took a mini motor, which, okay, is not Can-Am like. And again, this is literally 30 minutes, because both of these took about an hour, honestly. And again, this one I built a little bit of float in it. I don't know if you can see that, but the front floats from the pan. And again, this is from just spare brass, just to try and see what I could do. That's why it's a square, and that's why the guide holder is square. And I really just took wire I had hanging around and soldered it up. These do run. In fact, we'll take them around just to show you that both of these actually run. But before we do that, so here's proof of concept 2, and more than enough space. I mean, you can see that, oh my gosh, tons and tons of space, and we could make this work. So no problem. I don't think we'll have any problem fitting these in any of these Lola T-70s. Oh my gosh. Yeah, the 2000, no problem. I really made this with the Palmer in mind, not thinking that my first concept would fit. So that's really where this came from. And of course, as you can see, it's really got the Palmer in mind. Unfortunately, concept one works, or is that fortunate? I don't know, but wow, that works. And of course, we'd have to extend the wheelbase, but as you can see with the Aurora, it could also fit as well. So we have two prototypes for our 4 Lola T-70 bodies. All right, so we've got some thinking to do. There are other possibilities as well, because this motor it's epic. I mean, it's massive. It really goes. And this motor is not as epic, right? But the chassis, I think, both concepts are a wee bit different. Similar but different. The difference being that with this concept, it's the wheels that move up and down, and the center nylon core of the chassis has the guide blade on it. Whereas this concept is, we still have the wheels not floating as much, of course, but the wheels and the guide blade float apart from the motor and axle pan. So those are the two differences, apart from the obvious differences that we got different motors and so forth. But there is one thing I didn't consider, which was instead of using a mini motor like this, using an S-can. Perhaps that'll be the next one. But these two give us something to think about. Well, all right. Just let me show you that these actually do run without bodies, but take them on the track and show you how they go. We're not going to time them though, okay? Because that's just not fair. All right, let's go over to the track and take these for a wee bit of a spin. Okay, so we're on the track with prototype number 1, or proof of concept number 1, however you want to phrase it. As we described before, it is the TSR F nylon center portion with the Sidewinder configuration, the TSR F nylon gears, and the TSR F motor. Well, I guess the only thing left to do is take it around the track. And as I said, no body and no timing, but let's just to give you an idea of how it goes, and I was surprised it actually works. Here we go. Oh wow. That's so cool. All right, well, that's pretty smooth. Well, it's smooth because the TSR F chassis is really good. And this one, well, it works. I'm really pleased about that. Let's try proof of concept number 2 over here. All right. So here's proof of concept number 2. Put this one to the side. Over here. And it's a little bit of a different design, certainly a smaller motor. Let's see how this one goes. Ooh. You know, that's pretty quick. You can hear it rattle. Wow. Gee whiz, that's actually pretty good. I guess it's run in a little better. It runs better now than it did when I first built it. Well, I guess I've got some work to do. These two chassis have potential. Again, I have to thank you very much for for taking the time to be with me. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this, and I would never have done just a conceptual chassis before doing these videos that you're so kind enough to watch. So thanks very much. I'm really quite pleased. I've never, I'm sorry. That concept numbers was the first Sidewinder I've ever really built by soldering, so I'm sorry, I got a bit of a smile on my face. Okay, well listen, thank you so much for joining me here at Scale Car Garage. I hope you enjoyed watching. If you did, please leave a comment, like, and subscribe.